And welcome to the FeedBak podcast, everybody. My name is Back. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This is episode number 198, almost 200, almost. As you know, I've been focusing on comedy. Go back to the archive. I just had a great interview with Brendan Lewin from Big Laugh Comedy. Talked to Marty Clark. Talked to Golden Dowling. Bunch of people, bunch of local artists, people making shit happen here in Austin, Texas. But yeah, for this episode, I want to introduce very funny comedian Alden Schaub. Am I saying? Am I pronouncing this right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for being on, man. I really appreciate it.
sure. No, it's fun. A lot of people will always call me Al because on
Really.
Facebook, yeah, I have it as A.L. Den
Uh huh.
as a joke, but then I'm the only one who gets it. So
Look,
it's funny.
when your
Huh?
name becomes a joke, it's kind of story of my
Well,
life.
my mom was complaining all the time. She's like, Alden, when you try to get a job, all these employers are going to get on your Facebook and they're going to find that you are doing silly stuff all the time. So I took my name, Alden, and I just put A period L period Den as like a pen name. And now it's really hard to find it. So I considered that a success, Then people
Well,
when
what
they
is the worst pronunciation of your name you ever heard?
Alden, I do a
Alden?
lot of yeah, Alden, I hear like Alvin. Part of that's the southern. It's just not a common name here in Texas, so I
Yeah.
just live with it.
Yeah, I can't say that I know a whole lot of Aldens out there. I'm trying to think. No, you're the only one. Yeah, you're the only one.
Well, when I was in I went to one of these organic markets, the one up there on Lamar. I can't think of the name of it, but I
Hmm.
had to go do a favor delivery for somebody, and they needed some organic ice cream. And I
Hmm.
saw one of the brands was called Alden Organics. So I was like, he's probably also from Michigan. Like,
So, where you from originally?
oh, I'm from Traverse City, Michigan, so it's like northern Michigan.
Nice. And what? But when did you start the whole comment? Well, first of all, there like I've been sorry, I'm going jumping around here, but like there's like these two stories, like origin stories of comedians, like as far as the commonplace ones. You have the I'm from a big family and I want attention and I'm the youngest of a bunch of siblings and nobody paid attention to me, so being funny was like my way to express myself. And then there's the the sad clown syndrome when you had a horrible upbringing and comedy is like a therapy to you. Those are like the two that I know. But what was yours?
I, I would say mine is a little different. I have trouble communicating with people about the things I think are interesting, which are usually sort of mundane or dumb. And so I found that if I was really funny, people would want to talk to me more because I do really like people. But then when I would kind of steer into the topics I like, they'd be like, just, the lights would go off. And so I
Like
found
what?
that well, like I really like sauerkraut, for instance, and
Sauerkraut?
sauerkraut, like the shredded cabbage that's like fermented.
Yeah. So you're 12 years old and you want to talk about sauerkraut at recess, and people are like, Alden, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, they're like, "What is this? Like, like, I don't know what that is. I don't know why you care about it. You're stupid." And I'd be like, "Well, oh, that hurts." So you're like, "Well, maybe if I tell some jokes, people will want to be more interested in what I have to say." So then that became a better way of talking to people.
Okay. That's the third one. That's totally. I never. I want to talk
Well,
about
I mean,
sauerkraut. That's the shit.
I don't know. I just take an interest in unusual things, I guess. And then, so what I find interesting, like I studied economics in school.
Uh
Most
huh.
people would find that pretty boring unless that's something they're interested in.
Right.
So I just came to realize at some point that most people I talk to just don't care about that. To me, it's personally interesting. But then, so if I want to talk to somebody about just to see what they're up to, you know, it's not going to come up because, you know, what's interesting to them is not that. So it's easier for me to figure out, oh, they're interested in whatever, cars or something. So then I'll make a joke. And then that's it. That's the easier way to build rapport than like, let me tell you about fiat currency. They're like, oh God. Like,
You know what? We would have gotten along as kids. I really think because it's like the ability to talk about anything and everything. Because when you're around dudes,
Mm,
and well, mostly dudes, I would say like uh, it's the same shit. Talk about girls, talk about cars, talk about sports.
sure.
I care about the girls part, but the other stuff, I'm like, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be deep, but the ability to just take something mundane and make it interesting is the skill in and of itself, right?
Sure. Well, like I just really like people. I talk to people at the gas station. I'll talk to people at the grocery store. Just whoever. I just like talking to people, but they're often not interested in what I'm interested in. So it's just like I view it as a courtesy. Like if I want to talk to somebody, you know, then I got to see what they're up to, and that's okay. And that makes I learn a lot that way too because oftentimes they'll talk about something I don't know anything about it, and I'll
Hmm.
just be like, I'll just ask, oh, well, what's that all about? And then they'll tell you, and I don't say like pretend I know anything about it. Usually I don't. And I'll be
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about cricket. And what's up? They got a flat bat. Ah, yeah, that's interesting. And then they'll tell you about it, and then you're like, well, now, so then it helps me write trivia too. I'll learn about something I never heard of before,
So
and
when
then
when did the comedy thing really click for you? How old were you?
well, I was always funny. I always liked to tell jokes. Probably even when I was in like grade school, just being a cut up and stuff. And um, yeah, I don't know. I used to read Mad Magazine all the time. That was sort of my thing.
Ah, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Like I'll tell you, I got this. I was going to show you for the cool things. My girlfriend got this for me for my birthday. The
Eh,
big Mad Magazine book here. So
Nice,
yeah,
Matt.
so I'm gonna
60
read from it.
years.
Yeah, I
Uh,
used to read them every month, and then I had actually went to a comic shop, and I bought like a huge box of like Mad magazines, like from the '70s, and I was reading that when I was like 15, and I didn't really get all the jokes, but I was sort of like, okay, somebody thinks this is funny, like they're talking about Nixon or something. I'm like, well, I don't really know the context of what this is all about, but they're sort of acting like he's an absurd individual, so there's something funny there, and I'm just not understanding it. So then I would be like, well, why is this funny? And then so that I would sort of just figure it out, and then I'd be sort of, I don't know, building up an ability to understand comedy, I guess.
did you
'Cause I
watch
was
Matt
like,
TV too?
oh yeah, I
Thank
watched
you.
that. I watched that one more than I watched Saturday Night Live, actually.
You know what? You're the first person that I've talked to that feels the same way. Matt TV over SNL any day. I've actually gone back. It's on HBO Max. I went back and saw that season one just
Sure.
to watch all the because I think they pushed the envelope way more than SNL did. Maybe early SNL with Richard Pryor and Chevy Chase was like cutting edge, but Matt TV just took it. They really pushed it, and I always love that Mad TV. Wow.
Yeah, I got some of their DVDs from the library. You can get them, and like, man, when Will Sasso used to impersonate people, I always thought it was so funny because like he's so fat, and he doesn't look like any of the characters, but then he sort of does look like when he did Bill Clinton,
Uh
it was
huh.
like, oh man, he really captured him, or he'd do like Kenny Rogers,
Kenny Rogers, yeah,
oh
Steven
man,
Seagal,
like he did,
uh,
it was Kenny Rogers
Schwarzenegger.
Jackass. It was one of my favorites.
Why is that the one when he's trying to like do some not carpentry? Yeah, something like that. And he
Well, he's
has
got
like,
that one. He's
and he
that
keeps
carpenter
cutting
guy
his
who keeps getting
fingers.
injured. Yeah, I forget what his name is. That's Will Sasso also. But
Yeah, that's
no, he
right.
does a
That's right.
sketch with the guys from Jackass, and he's dressed up like Kenny Rogers, and they're like doing a Jackass like sketch. That one's pretty funny.
Yeah, I remember that. But like from like him and Deborah Wilson is fucking
Mm,
brilliant. Nicole Sullivan, Mo Collins, Michael McDonald, all those guys, Phil Lamar, like these are people that like they had so many characters and they were just funny. Like you wanted to like I wish I had a crush on Nicole Sullivan and Deborah Wilson. To be,
oh
to
yeah,
be, to be honest with you, I was like these girls like just like I wish I could just hang out with them. But wow, yeah, Mad TV was the shit. Go back. It's on HBO Max, man. You can. I mean, if you have the DVDs, you're fine. But
yeah.
all the seasons are on HBO Max.
Well, and I took a sketch writing class at Cold Town, and I was watching the Mad TV over again, and like they're all character driven,
Hmm.
where like some other sketches are concept driven. They were mostly characters, not always, but that was sort of the way they did it. So I was thinking, when I make my own sketches, like I've never really done characters. So I was like, well, what could I do as a character? And so then I started to kind of develop it a little bit, but it's
Hmm.
hard to make a fully formed character like that.
So, what made you want to jump into improv?
Well, they had an intern program over at the Cold Town, so you could either take sketch writing or you could take improv 101.
Uh-huh.
As an intern, you got a discount, And
Oh,
so,
nice, nice. How
but
long
you
did you do
couldn't.
that? Sorry, how
Well,
long did you do that for?
I just did the one class, so it was like 8 weeks, and so you learn how to write sketches.
And then from there, you went, okay, now I'm going to try stand
Then I
up.
just started making YouTube videos of sketches, basically.
Oh,
So I did like 30 like one person sketches that were just me, and then I did. Now I've started to do two-person sketches. So what I've been doing is I'll watch another comedian's set and I'll look at what they're doing and I'll say, okay, how could I take one of their premises and turn it into like a sketch?
hmm.
And then I'll write it out and I'll go to the comedian and I'll say, well, here's a sketch idea I've got based on your premise. What do you think? You want to do a sketch? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I kind of like it, but maybe we could do this, and then I'll just film it with them. So that's pretty fun.
And that's still on YouTube somewhere?
Yeah, it's just called they're called boredom busters. I just thought,
Boredom Busters. And it
yeah,
was
they're more.
okay.
Hmm? Oh, they're more boring than being bored is kind of the point.
But was it like it was you and a bunch of people, or just you at the time?
Well, I just started out as just me, so I would just like come up with an idea. Like I had a premise, like they say, watch pot never boils. So I'd be like, well, does it? So then I filmed myself watching a pot come to boil, and I was just drinking beer. And then in the end, I'm like, well, you just can't, believe everything you hear, because it did boil at the end. So like, it was so dumb, but like,
It fucking works, man. It's
I was like, all right. So then also, I made one. I like to cook with my Instapot a lot, and
uh-huh.
so I was showing people how to make ice in the Instapot.
How does that
Uh,
work?
well, it doesn't,
Oh,
but like, but that was the
I'm
problem.
so see. This is how dumb I am. Like I really had to ask. Wait, hold on. Ice in the Instapot? That doesn't add up.
Well, and see, actually, it does. So that was a huge problem with the sketch because, again, not everybody, well, nobody knows that it can't do it. So, like, it can make yogurt, it can make rice, it can
Uh,
make beans, it can steam, it can do all this stuff. So, when I tell people it can make ice, they're like, yeah, I guess. So then I made the video in a way I thought would be a joke. But the problem is, people didn't understand that it's not possible. So I was just like, well, you put the water in and then you put it on cryo mode, and then you just like, come back in 5 minutes, and then I pull out an ice cube, because I put it in the freezer, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
just like
yeah.
pull it out. But then, so people were like, "Well, why is this funny? Like, so what? You make ice in your spot? Who gives a shit?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, it's impossible." So like, right, like, so the
Like you
video
don't
sort
get the
of,
fucking joke because you can't do it. It's a joke. God
but so
damn.
then that made the movie, or it made my video like not work. Like people were not able to understand the premise. So then even though to me it's just like wildly hilarious, but like people, like even friends of mine who are chefs, they'd watch it and they'd be like, I didn't know it could do that. And I'd be like, oh, so it was like too esoteric, and like, so then even Ty Wynn, he had the comedian home movies show over at the Santa Cruz Theater.
Uh-huh.
So that was the video I submitted for that show. So the deal is you show the video and then you do some stand up after, and people are watching it and live. Again, they're not laughing because they don't realize you can't do that with the Instapot. So like, then I was explaining that I cooked the whole chicken in the Instapot, and then I asked them, "Do you think that's possible?" And they don't know. So again, it's like people know what an Instapot is, but they don't know what it can and cannot do. So I got beyond their ability to like understand the joke, kind of. So it was a problem.
Apparently not. If people don't know, I don't. I sure don't. I don't have one. I have one of those air fryer things.
Yeah, yeah. So like people know what an air fryer is. Okay, you say air fryer, but if they've never used one before, they don't know. Could you make deep fried ice cubes? Maybe. I don't know. Like, I mean, I've seen fried ice cream before. Maybe
No
you could do
shit.
that. Like so. I mean, it's like there's too much information available. So like one of the problems I have is the thing relatable? I need to start out with that. Like,
Hmm.
do they understand the premise? Sometimes the answer is no, and I have to rewrite it. Like it's just something you got to do.
So when did the jump to stand up happen then? To
Well, so I've been hosting trivia for a while.
okay.
I think I'm about 9 years of doing that. So I used to do it in Michigan, and I've been doing it down here in Austin. And I wanted to run it as a business. And so I hired hosts. I would
Hmm.
run shows. Just hated it, and I was
Nine
like,
years?
well, yeah. So I had done it for 7 years as just a host, right?
Yeah.
When I transitioned into running it as a business, I couldn't stand it, and I was like, why? What is the thing that I really like doing now? I don't like doing. So
Because
what
there's money
happened here?
involved now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so I sort of always considered myself an entrepreneur, but then I did a bunch of writing and stuff, and I realized I'm actually a creative type, and I don't know why that never dawned on me. So I like trivia for the performing. I do not like it because it makes money. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So then I was like, well, then what other things could I do performance wise instead of trying to do business things? And so I thought, well, stand up, I guess, is similar to trivia. Maybe I can get some of the fulfillment I get out of that with comedy. But then I also had to think, man, comedy is a thing that is a sort of a gamble. I mean, there's no guarantee of success.
Of course. Yeah.
One, the price of success in comedy is not whether or not you can be good at it. I think a lot of people probably could.
Hmm.
Can you go for 10 years without making money and really put all your all into it, and at the end not know if it's even going to work out? you know a lot of people don't like that level of uncertainty,
Yeah.
and I just sat down and said, well, I can handle that. I mean, that's not a problem, so I'm just going to do it. I mean,
Do you have a day job?
well, I still do trivia, a couple days a week, and that makes a little bit of money. And then I was doing favor, and now I'm working for a friend of mine, just remotely. So, sort of, I'm mostly just doing comedy, uh, which is
But the
fun. I mean,
but the trivia thing. Well, first of all, is it like kind of geeks who drink kind of thing where it's different theme all the time?
yeah. Well, geeks who drink are my bitter rivals. I run on it.
I've interviewed the host of Geeks Who Drink
uh,
on this podcast a couple of
yeah.
years ago.
So they
Good
have
guy.
a they have a lot of those shows in town. There's probably 10 or 12 geeks who drink shows. So mine is just an independent one.
Yeah.
I just call it Unknown Trivia, and I host it on Mondays at the Barton Springs Saloon, and Tuesdays at the Lucky Duck. So, and I just, I write my own questions, and I have my own PA and my own computer, and then I just do the shows, and then I get paid. So,
Is it like a like told me like one of the themes that you had on your
oh,
trivia?
I don't really have themes. I just write them random. So every
Oh
week is a
shit.
different.
Okay.
Every week is different. So it's for the casual player. You can walk into one of my shows and just start playing, because it's going to be about math and history and science and movies.
Sauerkraut in there somewhere.
Often, so sauerkraut is sometimes too obscure. I could say to them, what is sauerkraut made out of? People might know that, but beyond that, it's just like you have to keep it within the realm of general knowledge.
Wow. So you got to know a lot of random shit, or you just you have to do a lot of research for that.
Oh yeah, so like I'm always looking for trivia questions. Like the other day, Tina and I, my girlfriend there, we went out to brunch at this dim sum place.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, my friend said that dim sum means brunch, you know. And I go, well, is that true? Turns out it's not. So like that could be a great trivia question. True or false? Does dim sum mean brunch? You know,
Mm-hmm.
people may or may not know. So then, you got to find out.
How many pixels in an inch?
I have no idea. That'd be a good one.
I think it's 72. It was a
Well,
thing we used to
so
throw around at work with my coworker. We just walk into the office. He'd be like, "Back, how many pixels in an inch?"
see
72.
now, if I was going to use that one, what I would do is there's tiebreakers at the end that involve estimating. So I would use that as an estimator.
Yeah,
So
because you
like,
can't. There's no way to tell. I mean, there's no way to tell.
well, some people know, but
Look, I'm bad with measurements. Period. If you told me this is an inch, I'd be like, yeah, that looks
yeah,
about right. I
Probably
have no
right.
fucking clue. But it's one
Well,
of those. I like the uh just random knowledge. I think is interesting. Not as in because some people do it for oh yeah, I want to, it's great to break the ice at a cocktail party or to impress a girl, and you tell her that kangaroos have three vaginas, or not kangaroos, yeah, kangaroos have three vaginas. uh
oh, cool.
is it kangaroos? Are you taking notes?
Yeah, I might use that one. Well, no, I had a good one last night. So, like everybody knows what a sundial is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but then if you have your sundial and you're setting it up, which direction do you have to point the thing? That like, it's called a gagamon or something.
Which direction you have to point the how you call that thing?
The pointer or whatever. There's a
Yeah,
there's a technical
north,
name
I
for it.
guess.
Yeah, so it has to point north. So
Right.
that was the question. So most people got that one right. Some
Uh-huh.
people put east or something. But then also I found out if it's in the southern hemisphere, still north because it's the way the earth rotates. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Where toilets will flush different based on the hemisphere.
Let me ask you, do you ever, I mean, based on what you're telling me, you seem like the kind of guy who would get lost, like going to rabbit holes.
Well, so I have to be careful of that because so what I'll do when I'm writing a set of questions, I'll give
Uh-huh.
myself 2 hours and I'll break it up into 2 hour, 1 hour segments. So my thing is if you're getting below, like if I'm spending 10 minutes on a question, it's too complicated for
Hmm.
a layman of the thing. Like I want it to be accessible to somebody who is like a casual, like let's say somebody reads the New York Times or something, and that's the level of information I want them at. Like I don't want a question that's for like an expert in the field. I want somebody who's like has some knowledge of the thing.
Sure, sure, sure.
So like economics, for instance, if I ask somebody about the Federal Reserve, they know what that is. But then once you start getting deeper and deeper into it, it's too specific to that.
Right, but just you personally. I'm not talking about like preparing for trivia. Just you
Oh,
personally, like just seeking knowledge. Like you said, you probably know more about sauerkraut than anybody else
sure. Well, I just
ever. So
I read a lot. I mean,
I mean, getting like I do this thing sometimes, and I I spend more time I think on YouTube than anything else,
mm,
and it's actually the number one search engine. It's bigger than Google. It's bigger than Yahoo. Any of those. Like YouTube is the best search engine, and so I'll think of something random. Like the other day, I was, um, oh yeah, the Tom and Jerry movie came out,
oh yeah.
right? And I was like, and I watched some of it, and I don't like that kind of live action type shit. The only movie that's done it right, I think, is Roger Rabbit, and Space Jam, the first one. I don't
Hmm.
know about the second one yet because it's not out yet. But anyway, point is, I'm thinking, oh yeah, Tom and Jerry, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna show Tom and Jerry to my son, and he loved it. And then I started thinking, I want to know about the history of Hanna Barbera, who came up with Tom and Jerry, like in the 40s or some shit. And I started watching all these documentaries about Hanna Barbera on YouTube, and then from there I went into. Uh, I was a big fan of Cartoon Network growing up because that's how I learned most of my English because we had it in
Hmm.
France. And I was like, yeah, I wonder what happened to Cartoon Network, and I just dove into that, and then that was like a 3 hour rabbit hole that I got into, and it started off from Tom and Jerry. Does that ever happen to you? Now that like
Oh
seem like
yeah.
somebody who seeks knowledge a lot. That's why I'm asking.
Constantly. Okay, so I'll give you the progression. Yeah, so like to use the sauerkraut as an example. So
Yeah.
like I was reading a book where they say that your brain is affected by your microbiome of your gut. Okay, so that was the thing. So
Oh, okay.
I didn't know anything about that. I was like, okay, if that's true, then how do I like build up my microbiome or whatever? And they're like, well, you can take supplements.
Uh
So
huh.
then I started taking these supplements, and then somebody told me like, well, really, if you want to do it right, you got to get the live supplements. And I was like, okay. So I went to the store and looked at that, and they were kind of expensive. And I was like, well, I'm not going to spend all this money, you know, on these supplements. So then, what are some other options? And someone said, well, you can eat yogurt. Yogurt's got probiotics in it. I go, okay. So
Uh
I'm
huh.
eating yogurt, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel about the same. And then, so then, uh, I changed my diet up. I started going on this slow carb diet. So there's not a lot of dairy on it. I was
Right.
like, well, what am I going to do, for probiotics? And one of the things you can eat on there is sauerkraut, which I like, of course. So I'm getting cans of sauerkraut and I'm eating it, and then, but then I read in there that the canned sauerkraut doesn't have the probiotics because it's pasteurized,
Oh,
So yeah, so I'm like, well, I'm not getting those probiotics, So then I actually started making my own. So like, I got a jar and I'm like fermenting it in my house. So like,
you're making
uh,
sauerkraut at your house.
yeah. So then, that's how. So it's like, I got a jar and like, so like that's how when I explain it to somebody, like I'm making my own sauerkraut, like no part of that to them is logical. Like there's no part of that that makes sense. But
I've
like,
never heard
you know,
anybody make their own sauerkraut.
yeah, it's
And I
pretty
can't say
easy.
I can't say that I'm a fan either. Like I've had sauerkraut on, hot dog, like bratwurst,
Sure.
as I pronounce it. Yeah, to put it on there, and
Yeah,
that's it. But to
that stuff's
make it at
okay,
home,
but
okay, how do
yeah,
you
it's
make?
really easy.
It's easy.
Oh, it's super easy. Okay, so yeah, you get like a big jar, like I got a 64-ounce jar, and
Uh
then I
huh.
got a food processor. So you take the cabbage and you just shred it so it's little, and then you just start mashing it into the jar, and then you just put kosher salt in it. And then so as you mash the cabbage, the juice kind of builds up.
Uh
So
huh.
then once the cabbage and the salt is below the level of the juice, you just like you're done, and then you just like put the lid on. It's got a chamber lock, like a brewer's lock for fermenting or
Yeah.
brewing, and then you just let it out. You just let it sit for like a month, and so then over that time, it like ferments. So then at the end, it's got like the probiotic culture in there. It's sort of like making kombucha in a way. It's like fermented.
Holy shit!
So it's good. I mean, I
People
like it.
probably tuned out by now, but I don't care.
No, but I mean, like it's to me, it's really interesting because I was like, well, can I do it? And then I looked and again, I got on YouTube and this guy was just like, hey, make your own sauerkraut. And I was like, that doesn't look that hard.
Uh
And then
huh.
it's not. So then when I explained to people like it's sitting out for a month and not refrigerated, and then I'm gonna eat it, they always go, well, did you shit yourself? And I'm like, well, no, I mean, it's just salt. I mean, salt and cabbage are salt is a preservative,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is it
So
working though for the probiotics? Do you feel a difference?
I have no
Filtering anything?
idea. I mean, I feel pretty healthy, but I mean, I eat it like every couple days, and it's pretty good. I mean, I'll have like some pork and a little sauerkraut on there, and maybe a little mustard. And I don't know. I mean, and then again, I'm not a scientist, so it's hard for me to say like, you know, am I a superhuman now? I doubt it. I
I
mean,
look, man. If you get superpowers from sauerkraut, I think people would know.
well, I suppose it would be getting around at some point, but I feel healthy. I guess I haven't noticed any side effects. You know,
Holy shit! This is a look, man. You just blew my mind. I've never heard anybody make sauerkraut at home. Yeah, usually you
but
plant weed or you have your
sure.
garden in the backyard, but sauerkraut. Holy shit!
Well,
But
one of the jokes I like to make about myself is that like a hipster
uh
is
huh.
a person. So I'm like the hipster's hipster. Like people look at me, hipsters would look at me and go, "What's that guy up to?"
Well,
Like
guess
I,
what? Would you like some sausage? I got just the thing to go with it.
yeah. Well, I said I was making. I like a hipster has to do something that's unusual, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
they they take pride. But then I said, well, if I just eat sauerkraut, that's not unusual enough, right? As part of the joke, I've got to take it one level further. I got to invent an activity because that way nobody can copy it.
You, I think, and this is a true belief that
Sure.
whatever you're into, whatever
Mhm.
you're into, there's a there's a Facebook group, there's a website,
Oh
there's a
yeah,
meetup group, there's a Twitter space, a clubhouse. There's a community of folks who actually just do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a sauerkraut festival or a sauerkraut convention. There's a,
I'm
there,
sure there is.
there's a potato convention already. It comes to Austin once a year. And sauerkraut is not that far fetched. So there's probably a sauerkraut festival out there.
Well, and I
And you
often
got to
think,
go.
okay, yeah, if I find it, I will totally go. But like, also, I think when I go to the HEB, they sell it, right? So I can't be the only one buying it. So it must be going somewhere.
Yeah.
But you just don't see them every day. I guess it's not probably a fast moving item. Well, what I think is funny to me is for comedy is like compulsions. So I have this joke where um I drive around until I find a birdhouse, and then I observe the birds, and I document that, and then I go home and I make a replica of the eggs, and then I go back, I drive back, and I put them in the birdhouse, and I say, I don't know, what do you think the birds think about that? I don't care. I just have to do it because I try to be unusual, you know. I had to invent my own activity, and so that's like the idea. Like you're
These
not
are some
weird enough.
hobbies,
You
man.
got to keep going. Like
It is some hobbies, Alden. No offense. But
well,
if
no,
you're
I
making sauerkraut and you're putting eggs in nests that nobody
yeah,
asked for,
but no, I mean that's the kind of thing that you end up doing if you're trying to get like way off, you know. And that's just like I don't know. Like you say, you're seeking out an activity. You just sort of follow it to its conclusion. I mean,
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you do follow through all the way, but get to where you're driving for an hour, find a nest, look at find a bird, and go up there and say, "Oh, the eggs are this color. Let me go back home. Let me go to HEB first, get some eggs, put them in the
right.
fridge, and then find the right color so I can actually, trick the bird when I bring it back. Drive all the way back, put it in a nest when the bird is not there because you have to wait for that, and then just put it there delicately and wait for a reaction.
Mhm.
Do you wait
That's
for a
just
reaction for the?
well, that's just the joke, you know.
No,
Like
I know, but
yeah,
I'm just.
but that's the idea of like a hipster would look at that and say that was unusual. You
That's so cool, man.
know, I think it's funny. Well, like I got this joke I'm working on.
Uh huh.
It's about chewing. You know, so like the idea of chewing is below people's interest in even thinking about generally. So to me, that's ripe for humor right there.
Right,
So
right.
like, so this actually happened. I was driving in my car and I was eating a bag of chips, like corn chips. They come in that paper bag. These are
Hmm.
like, and then so I was eating them, and then I bit something hard, and I thought, oh, that's probably like a burnt chip or something. But turns out it was a staple. Okay, so that was a surprise to me. So then I was like, okay, how can I make this into a joke? Okay, because it's like none of that is important or like controversial or anything. It's just like super mundane. Okay, so I
Hmm.
got that as the base, and I was like, thank God for chewing, right? I was eating these chips and I bit into this, and it was a staple, and I just thought, as a guy my size, sometimes I'm just shoveling in the food, so I don't chew as much as I probably should. And I thought, man, I probably have swallowed like how many staples? Not zero. So then I'll be like, just remember to chew. So like that whole thing, none of that's necessary at all to like exist or so. To me, that's so funny. Like I don't know why, but
No, look, hey, it's the take something simple and trying to squeeze as much funny out of it as possible. One of the best openings of a stand-up special I've ever heard was Louis C.K.'s Hilarious. And he starts off by saying, I'm going to butcher it, but fuck it. He starts off by saying, hello, everybody. And by everybody, I mean you guys, because most people are not here. And he goes, most people are in China. Actually, most people are dead. There's more people dead than there's people here. And then he goes and says, Hitler and Ray Charles, the only thing they have in common is the fact that they're dead. Hitler killed a lot of Jews. Ray Charles, nah, not his thing. And that's the opening of his special for 10 minutes straight. And at the end he goes, I don't know how to start a show. And it's so brilliant because he starts off by saying hello everybody. And then from there he stretches, ends up talking about Hitler and Ray Charles and Jews and all that. So I get the take something simple and just squeeze the funny out the shit of funny out of it, and it works. I think it works, but there's a method to it, and it's interesting to see how far you can take it. You know, but did you start off doing that when you first started?
well, I was just telling stories of things that were unusual that happened to me in my life when I first
Hmm.
started. So like I worked at a ski resort and I would tell what that's all about. But then I was finding out that people weren't really laughing that much. Like the story itself had a level of absurdity to it, but
Hmm.
I wasn't getting laughs. And so I was like, well, what's going on with that? So then really what helped me is I started writing one-liners. So then now I kind of understand more the functionality of what you need to have for a joke. Like, you know, stand up is really a specific type of communication.
Right.
And so you have to have the punch and you have to have the setup and you have to have that part of it. So sort of what I'm working on now is taking the story part that I like and putting one-liners on top of it. So like I have a like I listened to your one with Dean you just did where he got to be the prisoner in Walker Texas Ranger.
Yeah.
The one episode. So I got to do that too. I got to be cast as a patron at the strip club in one of the episodes. And
Oh, in the
so
CW? On
yeah,
the oh, okay, cool.
yeah. So anyways, so that was an interesting experience. So I started out with that. Okay, I got to live my dream, strip club patron number 5. So like that part's kind of funny. But then I had to write one-liners on top of it. So I was like, I just literally sat down with a sheet of paper and I was like, strippers, like what's funny about strippers? And I was like, strippers make great girlfriends. Well, most people would disagree with that. So I said, strippers make good girlfriends if you're a drug dealer. So then that became okay, I got that. And then so I'm trying to build the story with the one-liners.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally see. I told, I don't know if you were there that night at the Romo room where I told a story by the time I got punched in the face by by the French hooker.
Sure did.
Yeah. And that was my first time actually telling the story. I mean, yeah, I guess you were there, but
Mhm.
I thought about it. I have all these stories of shit that I've done, shit that I experienced, and I'm like, okay, it's not about just telling the stories, finding those funny points, I guess, that you can insert here and there, so people are like, oh, this is captivating, but there's also some funny things that there's some funny moments in it, like you
Yeah.
exaggerate some of the stuff or you throw a punchline in there.
Well, one thing I noticed is when I do this story now, one of the tips I got from a book was not to tell it in the chronological order that it happened. Do it by topic. So if you're going to talk about getting punched in the face by a French prostitute, instead of being like, I went in the room and then we negotiated the price and then she told me to take my pants off, like there's
Hmm.
like not a surprise in there. Start out with like, what do you think about women working as prostitutes? And then, so do it more like topically. So like in the stripper story I tell, I say, how did I get cast as the person? I just sent a picture of my face and
Hmm.
they said, look at this guy. He looks like a degenerate. Get him in here. Like, so that's sort of the first topic. And then the next topic is like the acting part, which I am not an actor. So then how did that part go? And then, so it's like, instead of like, this is what happened, it's like, here are the bullet points
Like
of it.
telling it in chunks, and then
Yeah.
they put it all together, and then this, and then big laugh, hopefully.
Well, because
I,
like if
I
you tell,
mhm.
I was gonna say, if you tell a funny story to somebody, it doesn't necessarily have to go in the order which with the events happened. You just want to
Yeah,
get
that's
to the
true.
funny parts.
Movies don't do it. I like movies that gives you little bits and pieces of the plot, and then it kind of all wraps together at the end. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I like that kind of stuff because it makes you think, okay, where is this going?
Sure.
You see what I mean? I mean, you can build it. There's some great storyteller comics out there. Big J is huge. Dave Chappelle's a great storyteller. But there's an art to it, and that was my first time really trying to tell a story. And I'm gonna work on that one because I think it's funny. So
Well, so that to me, like if I was to write that story, you have an entertaining story. Absolutely. It was very interesting and I enjoyed listening to it. And I laughed a couple times. And so then the hard part is taking that part of it, which is good, and then also getting the laughs. You know what I
right,
mean? So that's where you've got to have like you got to take the story and rewrite the parts of it into the format of stand up essentially. So I think
yep,
of it.
you're absolutely right. You're
And
absolutely
it's
right.
easier said than done because
Oh
like
yeah, it's my first time. Yeah, it's gonna take me some time to get it down, but I will because I love that story. I have more that I want to try out, but that was great. That was good practice to me. Do you always? So let me ask you, I mean, based on what we've been talking about, you seem
sure.
to analyze comedy a lot.
Well, I think about it a lot. I'm just like, like what's going to make people laugh is sort of a specific, I guess.
Hmm.
Well, and two, with stand up, what's nice is like you'll record your set, and you can see where they left, and then
Right.
you can say, okay, how can I get there a little faster? Like, I have this joke about how I spent a lot of time analyzing fart sounds over the weekend because I needed them for the roast battle.
Hmm.
And so I was like, then somebody told me I needed a lady's fart. So I typed in all these search terms for lady's fart. And like that part of it, there was no laughter when I listened back to it. The part where people laughed was when I said Brazilian fart fetish. And so then I listened to it. I'm like, okay, that's where people think it's funny. How can I cut out like the first 45 seconds of that? Because it's not necessary.
Right.
And then, so that's like, I had a joke. It was
Are you gonna
about
tell all your
sales.
jokes on it?
Oh, well, see, that thing is, I don't care about the jokes. The jokes themselves are not important to me right now at my
Yeah.
level of skill. It's the function. Like, do I understand why they work or not?
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
like,
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that. Okay.
yeah. So, like, I had a 3 minute set about about sales, and so I was talking about cold calling, and it was
Hmm.
like I had a minute on cold calling. Now it's 2 sentences. Have you ever done cold calling before? It's a good way to find out if you're suicidal. Like, that's it.
Got the
So
fat.
that
Got
boom,
the
boom.
fat. Yep.
That's it. Yeah. So then, but that's a time consuming thing. So now I have that part of it. I know that works. And then, okay, where do I go from there? Then I go into the pawn shop. And I'm selling the easiest thing in the world. Handguns at a pawn shop in
Hmm.
Texas. But then when I go into that part again, there's like a lot that needs to go because I'll listen back to it and I'll be like, the idea of me wrapping the gun in the U.S. Constitution for the customer to me is funny, but when I listen back to it, people aren't laughing at that part. But they do laugh when the guy refuses and says, "I'm going to wear it out. Like I'm going to wear the gun out, so I don't
Hmm.
need it to be wrapped." That part they laugh at. So then it's like, well, do I cut out the wrapping part completely? Because then the other part doesn't make sense. Like, so maybe I'll try it where I just say, "Well, do you need a bag?" And he'd be like, "No, I'm going to wear it out." That'd actually be a faster way to do it.
Now that makes perfect sense. I was talking to Ozzy.
Mhm.
Shout out to Ozzy Moon. And he was telling me he's like, yo, back, you're funny, but you gotta cut the fat because it I used to get uncomfortable with silence.
Me too.
And he told me, he's like, look, man, just sometimes it's better not to say anything and let the crowd react to that, then try to fill it with us and oh what else or whatever, or try to even explain yourself, like either explain the joke or the joke becomes too wordy and you're stuttering. So if you got to be confident enough to where whatever comes out of your mouth is either leading up to funny or is just funny,
Mm-hmm.
leading up to a laugh or just funny and people laugh. So
Well,
go ahead.
I absolutely did that too. Like I would talk over my own laughter. And
Yeah.
so I've sort of started to think of it like thirds, like 2/3 is the joke and a third is you just not talking. Let them process the joke. And sometimes you're just sitting there to absolute silence and you're like, but then my urge is to talk again, but I go,
Yeah.
no, I'm just going to let people marinate in it. And like, that's okay because you do need time to process it a little bit. And so then like I told a joke about I was driving down the street and I saw a sign for Motel 6 and they said they got Wi-Fi. And I'm like, they don't care about clean sheets or they don't care about, whatever. And I just stopped talking. Not one laugh. Okay. And I just kept not talking. And I was like, great. That's not a joke. Okay. Now I go on to the next one. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And
but
that's what Ozzy told me, is like, let it breathe and don't, just because you have 4 minutes doesn't mean you have to talk for 4 minutes. It's
right.
the whole
Yeah. It's
point.
almost like if you have 4 minutes, you should be talking for 3 of the minutes and 1 minute should be them allowing them to laugh.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
definitely. Definitely. So are you um so how long you been doing this total actively?
Oh, so I'm gonna hit 200 open mics this week. I guess I keep them on a spreadsheet.
Oh, you count in open mics. You don't
Yeah.
count
So
in time, right?
I got the time listed there too. I don't know. I probably have I don't know what's 200 times 5 or something like, I don't know, a couple hours maybe.
Wait, 200 minutes?
Well, some of the
But
sets are like 4 minutes or 6 minutes. So
let's
what
say
is
five
that?
minutes times 200. That's
Like a thousand minutes?
1,000.
How many hours is that? I don't know.
That's 1,000 hours, whatever that is in days. I can't do math right now. But but how long ago did you start? I guess is my question.
Oh, so I probably started like 6 months before the quarantine, and then I obviously took the quarantine off, and then I've been going pretty hard since then. Once things started to open up,
Oh, okay, cool.
so maybe a year and a half, I guess. But like I've been doing that trivia for 9 years, so then,
Yeah, you have the public speaking thing down.
so yeah, like I have some of the abilities of a stand-up. I'm pretty comfortable up there, and I charisma or whatever you want to call it. That part I've got okay, but then the timing and building up material is what I'm doing now, because like I didn't have any material when I do a trivia show. It's all improv. You just talk. Like,
Right, right, right.
so, but and then writing one-liners. I mean, I do that every day now, so that helps. I mean,
Does it and you host too, right? You host the one downtown.
yeah. So I've been hosting a lot lately. Like, so I thought at one time maybe I would start my own open mic, but now I'm realizing that maybe what I could do is be everybody's backup host. So like if somebody gets booked on a show, they need somebody to fill in, then I come in and fill in. So like
Yeah.
I'm doing every other week at the Sand Jack Saloon, and then I'm helping Anthony with the Shakespeare show on Fridays, and then if somebody needs me to fill in, I just show up. So I
Yeah, because you listened to the Dean's episode, and it was saying that hosting is a different one. It's a different set of skills, but it also a door opener. Like it opens up a whole lot of opportunities
sure.
being a host.
Well, the hosting set is completely different. Like my job as the host is to support the comics, but that also means I need to control or understand the emotional temperature of the room. And
Right,
so
right.
I'm seeing when that comic went up, did the crowd like that? Did they not like that? And then when I go up there to be in between, what am I going to say? I want to be like, wow, that guy sucked. Like, no, that's not going to help me. That's not going to
You
help the
can say that.
show.
If he sucked, he
No,
sucked.
no, but I wouldn't say it like that. I'd
Oh
be
yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'd be like, ooh, like, oh man, all right. If you didn't like that guy, you might like this guy because he's exactly the opposite or something. To like get the people. And also, I feel like as the host, my job is to be the most enthusiastic person there. Like, I want people to have a good time. And if I want them to have a good time, I got to have you having a good time because they'll see that's happening. So I'm out there and I'm not as animated as some of the other hosts, but they can always tell I'm having fun and that I like them and I'm putting that out there. And I'm just like, there's no place I'd rather be right now than doing this. And I'm having just a fantastic evening and we're gonna have fun and it's gonna be great. And like people are like, yeah, because I do feel that way, that is what I want to be doing. Like I want to be doing an open mic and I want people to laugh and I want to laugh. So like that's the job of the host. The comic set can be whatever it is. Their emotional state can be bitter or it could be,
Hmm.
sarcastic. But as the host, I don't feel that's appropriate. You've got to be like, hey, we're doing comedy tonight, guys. What do you think about that?
Come on up close. Bring your friends. Have a drink. Tip your bartenders.
Like, it's party time, guys. All right,
Exactly.
we're having fun. But you got to mean it too. You can't just say the words. Like, I feel like it's almost like you're broadcasting your happiness out. You've got to
Yep.
like,
Yep. I totally agree. I used to say that about DJs. I've interviewed a lot of DJs over the years, and I know a lot of DJs here in Austin, and I'm like, to me, if I look at it, if I'm at a bar, at a club, or at a party, and I look at the DJ, and he's just like looking down at his records, just spinning, doing his thing. I don't care what kind of tricks he does. I don't care if he's mixing well. I don't care if the selection is good or bad. But if he doesn't have a smile on his face, doesn't look like he's having a good time, I'm not having a good time.
well, there's a reason for that. You know, Part of the way our brains are wired is there's this stuff called mirror neurons in your brain.
Oh, cool. I'm about to learn some shit. Trivia. Let's go.
So like when you look at somebody's face and they look at your face, you're mirroring what they're thinking. And
Uh-huh.
so like that's part of the way we as a species keep track of what's happening like we're not holding the entire plot of reality in our own brains. We're actually getting part of it from the other humans we interact with. And
Hmm.
so like That's why when you put somebody in solitary confinement, it's so damaging, because they're not getting the feedback of what's happening in the world. And so they slowly lose the plot of reality, literally. And so then you, as the comedian or host, when they are looking at your face, they're seeing it. Are you having fun? You know, and then they're like, oh, he's having fun, I'm having fun. It's almost like you can't help yourself, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a human thing to connect. I was
Sure.
reading this. I forgot. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was having issues with basically managing a business, right? the,
Yeah.
the work is never the hard part. Is dealing with a bunch of people and
Hmm.
their personalities, their background, their beliefs, and blah 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 blah, their moods, and you never know what someone's going through, right? uh and she was telling me, like, I don't understand, because I'm talking to these people, and I'm trying to tell them, like, basically how to do their job, and what I'm saying makes sense, but they're not getting it. And the first question I asked her was, how did you tell them?
Sure.
Because you're just telling me verbatim what you told them, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, we're on the same boat. We're all a team here. Blah blah blah. We got to work together. But if you say that with like a frown on your face and your tone doesn't match, or it doesn't connect, then it doesn't matter what you're saying. I forgot remember what the ratio was. Like, it's like 10% what you say, twenty
Oh, it's
percent
like,
how you
yeah,
say it. What
it's like
was the ratio?
I think 80% body language, and the rest is verbal, and then the face is in there. But like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, when I walk into a room, um, right, I don't have to say anything. People can just see it on my face and the way I hold my carry myself. I like you. That's just coming out of me like a
You're a
neon.
likable guy. I gotta say, Alden.
Yeah,
I from the first time I met you, I think it was at was it
I think it was
Shenanigans,
over
maybe?
at Mr. Tramps, but
Oh, was it Mr. Tramps?
yeah, I think so.
Oh,
You're
that's right. That's
you,
right.
you were one of the people who encouraged me to do the FPIA, and then
Yes, you're sitting next to me at
and I say,
Mr.
well, I don't know
Tramps.
if I've been doing it long enough. You're like, ah, who cares? Just jump in
That's
anyways.
that is right. Holy shit, I forgot about that night. That I remember now.
Yeah, but that part of my personality is not an act. I really do like people, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
very. I just have to. I just go around and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And like, but already people are like, I don't have to say it. It's just evident. So that's easy for me. I mean, and then again, that wasn't a thing that I learned how to do. I mean, I'm just
No,
wired
you
that
don't.
way. You know,
Yeah, exactly. You have it or you don't. There's
that's
people
like
who
a
walk around with a
perfect
frown on their
example.
face all day, and you don't want to
Right.
talk to them. You really don't.
They, they could learn how to mitigate that a little bit, but some people just don't like people. And it's really evident when you look at their face, the vocabulary they use, the way they carry themselves. And then you look at some people. I mean, I'm one of those people. I just walk up and people will just like come up and talk to me. And I'm just like, and I'm like, good. And I like to talk to them. And so like I'm like going around saying, hey, what are you up to? I think it's interesting. Let's have a chit chat. And then that's what happens. I mean,
Just
my girlfriend Tina's like that too.
well, I was about to ask, like, does it get on from her perspective? Does it get exhausting?
Not
Like,
really, she's actually got more friends than I do. She'll walk up and start talking to anybody and they're just like best friends right away. And
uh
she
huh.
has the same affliction I have where people just like her and she likes people.
Well,
I don't know what it is.
I'm thinking in terms of, like, you're like you were saying earlier, the weird topics or the weird things you want to talk about, but nobody else does.
Mhm.
And like you I don't know, you had dinner with your girlfriend, and you're like, oh, I don't understand what's up with the shape of a fork.
Mhm.
And she's like, oh fuck, here we go again.
What I'll
Why
try to
do
do
forks
is
have four little spiky things? And what is that? Why not two? Because two would be more efficient. Blah blah blah. And then does it get exhausting to her?
I try not to use up all of our time with my, thinking. What I'll do is I'll make a note to myself, like why do ducks have webbed feet and crows don't or something, and then I'll just like I'll use that for my research time.
That I can totally see how that can be exhausting for a significant other. Like, oh, here we go. He's in a joke writing mode, or he's looking for some stuff, and I'm just
Oh
trying to
yeah.
eat.
Well, like I try to do that part. I try not to use up all of our time doing those kinds of things, but it does happen occasionally because obviously a lot of humor is drawn from the things that you do. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
so we'll
Exactly.
see. Just like she saw a guy, we were driving downtown, and Tina saw a guy with a chicken on his shoulder.
Oh yeah, why not?
And I was like, so I got to think about that. What then obviously that's fodder for comedy. I mean,
I had a deep conversation. Well, it wasn't deep. It was more. I get on rants, especially
okay,
if I'm high. And English is my third language. So I'm to this day, I'm still learning words, English words or expressions. I mean, I've been in this country 23 years and I'm still learning shit. And we were at dinner, um, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, we're gonna do this, or I'm just gonna call Audible, and then we're gonna do something else." And I'm like, "Call a what?" I never heard that shit before. What do you mean Audible? Audible to me is either the Amazon thing to listen to books, or it means listen from like
sure.
audio. That's where the word comes from. And he tried to explain to me that Audible means change of plans.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in what language? And he goes, well, in football, like first of all, I don't even watch football. Well, the American football.
Mm.
And I really started questioning the term audible for 30 minutes straight. They did not want to have that conversation at all. They were just trying to brush up like back. You just fucking fucking French. Just shut up. Just that's what it means. Like just leave it alone. I'm like, no, no, no. It makes no sense. Even in football terms, it's weird because it,
Oh,
it
I know why it's called an audible.
why?
So like,
Is that a
so in the
trivia question?
huddle, yeah,
Mhm.
then the huddle they made their play. Okay, then they go up to the line and they're going to start the play, and the
Uh-huh.
quarterback he looks around at the defense and he realizes that they're not in a configuration that he likes. So then while they're standing there, he will call out a play verbally to the players. So they call it an audible play. So he's like yelling it out basically
See,
on the
none of them
spot.
said that.
Well,
None of my friends.
they probably
The way
don't
you
know.
okay, the way you explain it to me right now, as in he just talks to his teammates and they listen and they know we're changing. And
Right.
so
And he's calling it out. He's calling it audibly, changing it. Yeah.
that see nobody all they said was just look, it's just football. I'm like, look, that expression never graduated outside of football. I've never
Right.
heard this shit before. You don't go, oh, we're gonna have a burger, audible, oh no, we're gonna have pizza. It doesn't work that way. Like I've never heard that shit before. And none of them explain it as clearly and succinctly as you just did. So I
Well,
kept
and
arguing with them for 30 minutes about the fucking word.
they must have had a failure to communicate there.
I just
Ah,
said,
but now I got to ask you: do you know where that's from as a phrase?
what?
The term failure to communicate.
Nuh-uh. Well, I
Oh,
mean, it makes sense.
but it's a quote from a movie. So,
Man, I'm
uh,
learning so much right now. Go ahead.
yeah, in the film Cool Hand Luke, they would he was a guy who was in prison, and the warden kept saying, "We're having a failure to communicate," and then he would like punish the guy. So there's another idiom that if you are unfamiliar with the English language, someone might say it to you, and you'd be like, "Okay, we had a failure to communicate," but then there's a second meaning there that it's actually a quote from something. So like, there's all those problems too with languages. Like,
Yeah, well, and I thought about one term that made it out of the basketball realm, was just touchdown.
sure,
And I said, people use the word touchdown when they score something. You score a deal, like you close a sale, you close a deal. Don't people say touchdown? And they all went, nobody's ever said touchdown when they close a deal. I'm like, I worked for Best Buy for 2 years, and every time we sold an MSN or AOL subscription, we would scream touchdown to the entire store. And I'm like, no, that's never happened. Nobody says touchdown when it closes it. I'm like, well, regardless, you can still say, oh, I'm on the plane. I'm going to touch down in Atlanta. I'm going to touch down. People get that.
sure.
But Audible never made it out.
Well, what did they say when they landed a spaceship on the moon?
The touchdown on the
Touchdown.
moon. This is
Yeah,
touchdown.
touchdown. Yeah.
All right, there you go. So, seriously, it was a 30-minute argument about these stupid words. And you're like, back, just let it go. It's
But there
called
again,
Audible.
you got to think too. Okay, so those people you're talking to, they have just taken on that as a piece of information. So they've never actually considered it themselves. Why is it that way? They don't know or care. They just know if you're going to change the play, it means audible in football, and I'm going to use it in this context. They
Uh-huh.
don't really care to analyze it below that. So for me, that's where the humor is, like the chewing thing.
Yeah.
People they chew every day. They never really thought about it at all. So to me, that's below the level of human analysis,
Uh-huh.
and that's to me where the absurdity is right there.
That's my sauerkraut moment.
Right. So like most people, they're like, why would you eat that? Why would you make that? So then, but that's not even a thing. So like I'm finding the sauerkraut thing is a little too absurd.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
have found a lot of success with finding coins on the ground. That's been like sort of my signature jokes lately,
Uh-huh.
because it's just like so mundane. It's just like bordering on a compulsion. So I find it really funny. Like I made a film today. It's a POV of me looking over my gut, so you just see my gut, okay? And then I look forward a little bit, and there's a dime on the ground, and
Uh-huh.
it's just like 10 seconds, and I just think it's so funny, but it's just like so idiotic. Also, you know what I mean?
What's interesting is that um I've talked to comics. I've heard comics say, "Hey, when you're writing, you have to write in terms of what you think is funny, not in terms of what other people think is funny."
Sure.
You see what I mean? And
Mhm.
and so you can tell when someone is trying hard and it doesn't sound authentic because it's just trying to get laughs from the audience, and it doesn't seem genuine. It's almost out of character sometimes, right? But if you come from the premise of, well, I think this is funny, right? If you don't think this is funny, fuck you, first of all. But second, if you're not laughing, then either something wrong with you or I haven't done my job right. So I'm gonna go back and rework it or whatever. But I think there's something here that's funny to me, and it
Well,
should be funny to you.
that's important to make that distinction. Like, have you ever heard the distinction between a comic and a comedian?
Oh no, interesting. Go ahead.
So this is something I heard from an interview with Jerry Seinfeld, but he would say a comic is a person who tells a good joke that's functionally correct and is funny. So, for instance, I have a joke about a three-legged dog, and then what do you call that? And then what do you call a five-legged dog? So, like, functionally, that joke is correct. It's a comedic joke, and it
Hmm.
works. Okay, but then when you transition into being a comedian, you're taking that good structure and you're tying it into your personal perspective or your opinions or life in some way. So that's different. Like that becomes a matter of taste. That's what you think is funny. And so you can go through your whole career being a comic, and that's good. You'll get laughs and stuff. But like to transition over to be a comedian, yeah, it has to be very personal. You know, and that's really I
Interesting.
think that's where
That
I
no, that
think the
makes sense.
gold is. So like when you told your story about getting punched by the French lady there,
Hooker.
that's
Oh, what it is?
yeah,
It was a hooker.
that's where the real gold is, because that's a story only you know and only you can tell it, and it's only your experience. So like I could tell some hooker story, but I can't tell that hooker story because it has certain things about it that are unique to you in that
Right, right, right.
interaction. So that could be something that could become a very that's like a comedian's joke.
I have to figure this one out, man.
Well,
Next
and
time.
that's why a lot of my jokes are kind of I don't know. I'm trying to start out with the personalization first. I don't want it to be hack, and then I'll try to make it funnier as I go. Where are the jokes? So like, I found a penny on the ground, and what's all that about? To me, there's something funny in there about that. Most people don't even bother collecting coins anymore. So like, already I've got something that people aren't doing. Like
Mhm.
when something comes up in the news about whatever, Joe Biden's up to whatever. Like, I don't even listen to the news. That's not going to go into my jokes at all. It's not something
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
care
ask
about.
you if you keep up with like current events and stuff, and you put that in your.
I don't listen to the news. I don't listen to any of that. I don't watch it. I just listen to some podcasts once in a while. I read, and I listen to vaporwave in the car,
Uh-huh.
because like I think of it this way too. You know, everybody's hearing the same news and they're trying to write the same jokes about the same thing. And so if
Exactly.
you if you're going to be a divergent person in your writing, you actually should be divergent in your activities, because that's how you draw the, like, you're not being cluttered up by the same things everybody else is doing. Now there's a problem there with relate. See, my struggle is relatability.
Hmm.
I'm doing stuff that's like bizarre sometimes, and so then it's like people wouldn't even think to do it, or they can't. Like, I was writing jokes about space farts. Okay, so like, and the people are like, okay, what's he going to talk about farting in space? It smells bad. But I was like, no, it's a real problem. Okay, because it's actually half methane and half hydrogen, and it's flammable. You know, so my theory is we got to only send single women to space. Because they don't fart. So like, so I'm starting off with something that's just like so stupid. Space farts. What are we gonna do with that? Like.
Who do you think is the king of doing that mundane stuff? Observation.
Well,
I have
I
my
mean,
idea.
obviously Jerry Seinfeld is probably the king of that. Like, everything that he would write is just like there's no stakes involved. It's a personal annoyance of his, and even if it goes one way or the other, there's really no. It doesn't matter. Like,
Uh-huh.
he sort of is like a, I don't know, like a happy nihilist or something. Like, he accepts the absurdity of existence, but he doesn't let it get him down. He just like
Hmm.
he keeps going. Like, you know, that's like my joke about change I'm writing recently. I said, when I people ask me why I'm so happy, and I say, if I told you, you wouldn't understand it. Change is the key. I find a lot of delight in finding loose change on the ground. And if you can figure that out, you can have a really great life. But until then, I don't know what to tell you. And they go, well, that's stupid. That How can you take delight in finding coins on the ground? I'm like, I don't know, but when I find one, I'm just like, oh man, the
Oh.
endorphins, they're going. Like, so like, I don't know why, but that to me is like, so then people, when I do those kinds of jokes, they feel my delight about it for whatever reason, and they're like, what does he know that I don't about this? It's coins. Like, who gives a shit? I'm like, yeah, it's coins, man. It's coins. What? Yeah, you found a penny. Who gives a shit? I'm like, oh yeah, but I found it, on the ground, and it's free money. And they're like, I don't know. You think it's funny? I guess it's great. I don't know. What a weird guy. I'm like, yeah, all right, you get it.
Man, you should chronicle your days just looking just finding little things like a
That
day
is a
in the
lot of
life of
work.
Alden. That'd be
Sure.
interesting to watch.
It'd be dishwater dull for most of it.
Let's say, look, okay, he's standing at his sauerkraut now, and then what's next? Oh, look, he found a penny on the ground. Look how happy he is.
Yeah, and it's just like I found a nickel the other day. Like, I wrote a joke the other day about a nickel I found in the dryer. I said, the I found a nickel in the dryer. I got 5 cents off, and the washer also took 5 cents out of my clothes. And so, like, that's a dad joke. That's not very good, but I sure enjoyed writing it. I was like, that's pretty good. Like,
Yeah, I started off a set the other day at the Wanderlust, and I hadn't tried it because when I first started, I had this long bit about my name because I'm like, okay, I gotta introduce myself. When people introduce me, go, oh, ladies and gentlemen, back, and they go, wait, what did he say his name was? So I always felt like I had to justify it. Like that
sure.
would be the first joke that I would write and explain that, yeah, I get the jokes. And then it was a long bit, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think it was too stretched out,
I remember
and
that
then
part.
yeah, exactly. I can't. I got to do this. Yeah, it was about how um I met a dude named Chris, and I was pissed off because Chris was the most common name ever. And Chris, there's Asian Chris, Black Chris, White Chris. But there's no American Indian Chris because Christopher Columbus killed that shit off quickly. Yeah, so it was something like that. But it was the long thing about my name. And then the other day I went up and I said, "Hi, my name is Back. I am the a living and breathing dad joke." As in, like, I'll walk up to somebody, "Hey, I'm back," and they go, "Oh man, I'm front," shit like that. And I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna the story of my life." But that's the thing when we're talking about cutting the fat. I was like, I turned this long thing about me introducing myself and Chris and blah 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 blah. to yeah, I'm walking and talking dad joke every day. That's what I get. But anyway, I really really enjoy the process, and it seems like you do too.
Well,
Uh,
I think it's fun. I mean, it's a challenge to do something that's good. I mean, now that I have a better idea of what is functionally or structurally sound joke, I can take the stories that I like to tell and I can turn them into the language of stand up, if you think of it that way, because it
mhm.
is a specific way. And so then I can, part of the reason I like the stories too is because it's easier to remember. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
true.
know how people remember 50 one-liners, you know what I mean? So, like, to me, if I can weave the story as the base and then have the one-liners on top of it, I can
Hmm.
have both things. So we'll see. Hopefully that'll be a valuable way of doing it.
But do you keep up with well, actually, you said you don't keep up with current events in your regular life.
I actually try to avoid listening to the news, which is strange because I studied economics in school. So I sort of felt like I was doing a disservice to myself. But then I realized that, I just don't care about that stuff. Like, I mean, things are going to happen and go on. But like, if it's so important that somebody verbally tells it to me or they give me an audible,
Hmm.
you know, then I will.
Audible.
I got some audible news here. Then it's important. But other than that, who cares? I mean, and does that make me a little less informed? Absolutely. But I just
You're an
have to live with it.
uninformed voter, man. Uninformed
I am.
citizen.
I'm an uninformed human in general. I only want to be informed. But then a lot of the news today is not information. It's just advertisements. And
Yeah, it is. It is. It to me, it's gotten to a point where, like, I only watch international news.
oh yeah, I
There's
used
a
to listen to the BBC all the time, and
Oh
like,
yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
watch France 24, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. So France 24 is the channel out of France because it's in the name, but it's in French, Spanish, English, Arabic, and I'm forgetting one. But anyway, and it's live on YouTube 24/7, and every 30 minutes there's a news bulletin. It's only 15 minutes long, and it
mm,
tells you what's happening around the world, just the facts. And then in between those they'll have people debate, they'll have special shows about what women are doing around the world, what's going on with the economy around the world, like a story about uh somebody who just died, or let's take a couple of intellectuals, put them in a room, and then let them debate what's happening in Syria or whatever. But at least it's to the point. I can't stand the let's talk for a minute and then we'll be right back after this break, and commercials come back like, what did I learn? I forgot what they were talking about. But I mean, they have to fill in 24 hours of fucking news. It gets redundant after a while. But what's interesting to me is the how you were saying earlier, the because everybody's trying to be funny.
sure.
And when something happens, like the joke writes itself kind of deal. So if
Hmm.
a news breaks, like, I mean, with Trump we had plenty of those, and plenty of moments like that where everybody had that one line about Kofefe, or about the what's it called, the impeachment or whatever, and it's literally like just copy and paste, and you're looking for that one nugget in there. It's like, oh, that guy thinks left, but everybody else is basically writing the same joke with different words.
Well, and the new if you write topical jokes, they sort of have a expiration date.
Exactly. Yeah, that too. Good point.
I want to write something that's more evergreen, as they call it. Like,
Yep.
the same way there's hack trivia, and then there's also hack jokes. With like if I can write a good joke about collecting coins off the ground, it doesn't
I'm sorry, but
expire.
that's still silly. It's still silly as hell to me.
Well, and that's exactly right. The coin joke. Okay, what is it? Great. There's no controversy in there.
Yeah.
There's no stakes. Even the activity itself is bordering on useless. It's actually probably, I don't know. I mean, I have a big jar of coins now. I guess that's the gains from it, and the delight I have from collecting them. But like, whatever it is about it that delights me so much, I'm able to put that into the crowd. They can just see that it's just like Christmas. For me, I found a penny
Hmm.
on the ground, and I don't know why. So then, but that joke will never go bad. Essentially,
Yeah, exactly.
it's like I'm almost projecting my emotion out of it, of just like, and I realize it's absurd, but the absurdity is part of what makes it good. I mean, like,
Now I wonder. I want to see. I'd love to see you do a happy dance when you deliver that joke. Like, what does that
sounds
look like?
good.
What does Alden's happy dance look like?
So that could be what I could go into because I've got the structure of the joke down pretty good. Maybe I need to add an act out in there somewhere.
Yeah.
What happens? Yeah.
When
Well, I
I
used to do
told.
this thing
Yeah. Go
where
ahead.
I
Sorry.
would I would drop the coin on the ground. I'd be like, here's how you pick up a coin off the ground. And I would
Mhm.
drop it on the ground, but then I would pretend I couldn't get it because I was too heavy. So I'd just be grunting and trying to pick up this penny for like a couple of
There you
seconds, and
go.
I'd be like,
The
well,
physicality.
you guys know what it looks like.
Yeah. The physicality works, man. I mean, I'm not. Uh, I don't know if it'll turn out to be like one of those. There's these comics that really rely on that. Doing backflips and all
Sure.
kinds of stuff on stage. Uh, but all those things got to be taken into account. Actually, Pat Bernard, after I told that story about the hooker, it was like, I told I talked more about it afterwards to him, and he goes, "Dude, you should have thrown that in there. Like the dude's a midget. Like you should have been on your knees." Little
Well,
things
and
like
too,
that, and it's. I
but
have
Pat
this.
and I had a talk about that too. That the language portion of your brain is higher up in your brain,
Yeah,
then the part that reads body language and faces is lower. So you're actually able to communicate a deeper type of humor physically than you can verbally. Like,
that's true.
uh,
That makes sense.
like we were discussing, if somebody falls, they trip and fall, and you look and you realize they didn't get hurt,
Hmm.
you laugh. But no language was transmitted. It's just the physical part.
You're right.
So that's the same thing with the act out. You're broadcasting on a different channel, kind of. So you got the like verb. I'm pretty strong verbally, so I'm often relying on that. But now I need to get into moving my body more and doing more with my face. Like I bought a. Well, that's why I shaved my beard. By the way, I got rid of it, and then I got a mirror so I can make faces more.
I
Like
want to see
I'm.
that happy dance, man.
I'll just be like,
I'm telling you this. Now I want to see it. I want to see that happy coin dance. I got a coin. I don't know.
usually
Whatever.
I'll do something like, yeah, I found a penny the other day. They'll be like, okay, like it was
Crazy.
awesome.
Look how happy I look. Made my day. Started. I started a. What I say sometimes when something's so amazing, I go amazing to me. I'm like, look, you know what? I'm starting a diary. This is my first entry today.
Nice.
This how great this moment is. I'm starting a diary. That's it. Entry number one. I just found out what audible means. You just
Like
made
this
my
is
day.
this
Like
is a real
always go to
benchmark.
bed. Always go to bed less stupid every night. That is my goal.
That's
Not
fine.
smarter.
That's a good
Not
way to
smarter.
go. I think. I mean, well, if you go around pretending you know everything, then you don't need to learn anything. No one will teach you either.
Exactly. There's nothing worse than a know-it-all. Somebody you talk to them and you go, I know that. And I'm like, oh well, never mind then. Never mind.
Well, like my first, so I had done like 15 open mics or something, and I was
Uh-huh.
contacting comics and being like, "Hey, I want to set up some shows, and I want to do this and that, and I want to pay," and they're just like, "Yeah, whatever, man." And then now that I've been doing it longer, I'm like, "Oh man, there's really a lot to having it be a success. I mean, putting up a show or even just being funny at all and being
Sure.
consistent. Like, I can go up there and have something work one time, but then I try to do it the next night and it doesn't work. And so I'm like, well, what happened there? I mean, it's just, you just have to keep, you know, grinding
Yeah.
it up. I mean,
A running theme here is that I've had on this podcast is that, you know, it's hard to tell if a joke works when you perform it in front of a room of comics, full of
sure.
comics, because they've heard your shit before, and unless you've reworked it somehow, and even if you did, it still doesn't have the same effect. Um, like the the half a nigga pass joke that I had, I've reworked it maybe three or four different ways, and they know the premise, they know where I'm going already, so it doesn't have the same effect. But when I did it in front of non-comics, it actually worked. And
Sure.
that was my first kill, quote unquote. I mean, to me. and there was a girl from Arkansas in the audience, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm from Arkansas," and then she knew DMX. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!" I was so excited, but like it's hard to tell. So when you but also the relatability thing we talked about. So if I did it in front of a crowd that's mostly black folks, would it work the same way as a crowd with white folks or Asians?
Absolutely not.
I don't know.
You
I
have to
don't know.
profile the audience, you know.
Huh?
I think you have to profile the audience a little bit.
Yeah, you do. But I had a Charles Adams Jr. on, and it was saying, I don't care who's in the audience. My goal is to make him laugh. Of course, you will tweak it a little bit, and
Sure.
trying to read the cues, but overall, the joke is there. And so you, you're not gonna have an in, well, maybe an entire different set
No.
based on who's in the audience.
Well, I've been changing up certain details. Like I did a show in Taylor, Texas, so it's
Mhm.
more conservative on average, and then obviously downtown Austin is more liberal. You could, make those generalizations.
Right.
So when I tell my stripper bit in Central Austin, I say actually the strippers were all men. It was a co-ed strip club in the scene, and there was glitter all over the place.
Hmm.
And then when I tell that joke in Taylor, I usually leave that part out, because they're just like, oh man, it's a little too, open-minded for them. Like,
Ooh.
but the core of the joke doesn't change. I
Right.
got to live my dream, strip club patron. I got paid to be an extra as a strip club patron. So like
Uh-huh.
that part of the story doesn't need to change. But you can sort of, flavor it a little differently based on who's in the audience.
It's a brain exercise, man. And it's one of the best brain exercises.
Well, like I did a show, it was just in somebody's front yard in their driveway. And I was looking around, and all the audience members were like kids. They were like 18 to 23. And I was like, they're not going to be interested in my jokes, what I have to say. What do they think is funny? Getting drunk and puking, like times people poop their pants, like juvenile stuff. So I just did like the time I got the drunkest was and they just thought it was the funniest thing.
Wow,
And
nice.
so like I was like, okay, if I would have done sort of the material I was working on, it wouldn't have worked as well as them just wanting to hear something they think is funny, which is like the time I puked on the bus when I was working as a ski lift operator, like that to them
Oh,
was
hear
just
that
great.
story.
Yeah, well, I used to drink quite heavily when I worked out there in Utah. So on the charter bus that take you to work, they had a bathroom in the back.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes when the bus would get shaken, you just want to go back there and hurl. So that's what happened. You'd be up all night drinking wild turkey, and then you gotta get rid of it in the morning.
Oh man, but this is dope, man. This is dope. Really, wow. And by the way, I have to thank you.
No,
And I told that in person the other night because you actually stay at open mics to watch everybody go up front row.
well, there's a reason for that too, actually. And people don't really agree with me on this, but I feel viewing 5 sets is as good as doing a set, again, because of the mirror neurons.
Right.
So when I watch somebody up there, if they're good or bad or whatever it is, I sit there and I think, okay, where's the premise? When I hear it, I start nodding to myself, okay, I got the premise. Then when they hit the punchline, I think, is that what I would do? Is that good? Is that bad? Did that
Hmm.
work? And so, like, to me, people are giving me free comedy education. Like
Yeah.
that's what I,
No, no.
that's
Look,
what I'm.
I do the same.
Yeah,
And of course I'm a fan, so I'm there to support and everything. And I
sure,
told you it's like watching someone else play video games on Twitch.
right. Well, like if you talk to somebody like Tiger Woods or something, they say, well, what do you do to practice? It's like, well, I go out there and I hit a lot of balls, of course, but then also I visualize it. So me, I think when I see somebody up there doing their jokes, I'm imagining I'm up there sort of, and I'm thinking,
Hmm.
well, how would I do it differently? Or if it's really good, what is a way I could have my thing work like that? Or like, did they do a triple there? Or did they do what is the structure of the joke? Or did they do a pole reveal? Like, what is it? So then when I go do my stuff, I'm like, you know, Well, some of it's good, some of it's not good, but like I'm getting more ideas that way, I guess. Not to just like I'm not just gonna be like copying someone else's way of doing it, but like when they do it, you can see what doesn't work, and that's a lot of the battle too, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And then um I do the same thing. I stay for the entire time. I don't care how many comics go up. It's a learning experience, and like you said, you take, you learn from it. You see what works, what doesn't work, and you try to incorporate it in your own writing and your own performance in your way. You're not trying to do what they're doing, right?
Oh
But you're
yeah.
but you're just trying to see, okay, I okay, he when he said that, his voice went up, or he acted it out this way, or oh, there's the punchline, or oh, there was a 30-second silence there and everybody laughed. Like, oh shit, I gotta get comfortable with silence. It's things like that that you pick up on just from watching other people.
Sure. Well, I think it's important too that like I don't know. I was listening to Jeff Foxworthy, and he had an interview, and he said, you should try to be a good steward of comedy in the sense that we're also obviously trying to get better. But what are you doing for comedy? Are you promoting comedy? Are you trying to help it out, being supportive of the community and stuff? And I just like some people give themselves over to a religion or something. I just tell people, I just turn my life over to comedy. I'm just going to do comedy. And like, in a way, it's this is sort of an abstract idea, but
Hmm.
by giving it to comedy, like there's a law of reciprocation. I feel like I'm getting things back, it
Yeah,
feels good.
yeah, it is.
So,
At the end of the day, we're all in this together. So that's
right.
that's where we're at. All right. So, what's your dope shit you want to share?
So, I am really a big fan of the right 10 and exercise through a hot breath. And so, what they do is every morning they release a word of the day. So, whatever it is, paper or something. And
Hmm.
then you sit down and try to write 10 one liners in 10 minutes using the word paper. So I've done that for like 6 months, and I think I've gotten better. Not you don't necessarily use the jokes that you write, but the idea that all these words have multiple meanings. So
Hmm.
just going through that practice, I think it activates some part of your brain. I don't know, but I've noticed I've improved by doing that process. So I
Where
would really recommend. Mhm.
where do you find it?
Oh, so it's on Facebook. There's a group. It's just called Hot Breath, and it's the Hot Breath Writers Room. And then I've invited people on Facebook to join the group, but yeah, they just they it's like a podcast, and then it's Joel Byers, I think is his name, and they you just write your 10, and then you post your best joke or a couple jokes, and then but more importantly, I think it's the process of writing one liners.
Interesting. The comedy writing room presented by Hot Breath.
That's the one. Yeah. So if you're not in that already, I can invite you to that one. And yeah, I do it every morning. Like I get up, I drink my coffee, I do my morning pages exercise, and then I do the right 10. So,
Let me share that real quick. There it is.
yes,
There's
that's the
Mark
one.
Norman. Shout out to
Mhm.
Mark Norman.
Yeah, they did an interview with him on there. Yeah, and they do interviews with comics, and they do all kinds of stuff. And but yeah, I do feel that practice of sitting down because I didn't know how to write one-liners,
Hmm.
6 months ago. I was just like, I don't know how to do it. So what I need to do is learn how to do it. So then I just started doing it. And
Oh, that's a
now,
good one.
yeah, I feel more confident now that when I, you know, want to write some for my stories, I can do it. And it's just a matter of, just sitting down and doing it. And a lot of it's junk. I mean, it's like you're panning for gold, and there's a lot of dirt in there, but you get a few little nuggets, and then that feels good.
Right. Let's see. My dope shit of the week. Actually, by the time this comes out, it would already happened.
Mm,
But I urge anybody to go back and watch it. I'm a big Wu Tang fan.
mm.
I'm the best. Godfrey and I have a feud going about who's the biggest Wu Tang fan, and since what 2016, 2017, something like that, and uh, Wu Tang taught me English. That's how big of a fan I am. And if you're not familiar, there's this versus thing that goes on Instagram with Timberland and Swiss Beats, and they put on hip hop artists, legends, and then they go head to head, and then track for track. And the next one coming up, or the one that just happened by the time this comes out, is the Ghostface versus Raekwon
Oh,
uh, versus if you're a Wu-Tang fan, you know exactly who I'm talking about. These two are the most prolific Wu-Tang members. They own each other's tracks, each other's albums. And but when we're recording this, it hasn't happened yet. It's this Saturday at 8 o'clock. But it will, if you didn't catch it, or I hope you did, go back and watch it. I'm sure it's going to be dope. It's going to be all over, and people are going to be talking about this one for a long time. And so I look forward to it, and I'm gonna watch it again if you listen to this later. But yeah, the verses Ghostface versus Raycon. That's my dope shit. All right, so
Cool.
where can people find you? What you got going on? Plugs, showcases, mics, whatever.
Sure. So just my Instagram's at the Mob Shop, and if you guys want to play trivia, I got Monday and Tuesday. I got an Instagram for that. It's just called Unknown Trivia. You can follow that, and then the YouTube videos. They're just sketches, and I'm gonna start filming more sketches. So other comics are interested in being in them, come talk to me. And it's just called Boredom Busters, on YouTube, and they say they're more boring than being bored. That's my goal on there. So, and then I also write a blog. It's about saving money in socially awkward situations. It's called A Sick Desire for Savings, and it's
Mhm.
on Sick Desire for Savings on Blogspot. And yeah, I just write some stories on there. Sort of. I have like 2 subscribers. I got my mom and my brother, so it's pretty good. But it's just another thing. I mean, I feel, and I've been told when I listen to the comics that have been in it a long time,
Mhm.
they say you have to do some kind of writing. If you're not doing that, it's not going to work. Like you need to do some kind of writing. And so I took that to heart. I said, I'm just going to write. I don't care if anybody reads it. I just need to be writing a lot because for whatever reason, that's part of the process. George Carlin would say that. Seinfeld would say that. I think
Yep, you gotta write every day.
got to write every day. And like now, I'm a strong writer at this point. I mean, I was sort of before I'd write papers and stuff, but now like being very clear about the ideas that comes from writing well. Because when you write well, you have to take your idea and transmit it to the other person. Like
Mhm.
those friends of yours who couldn't explain to you what an audible is. Like they're probably awful writers.
No, they were high too. That's all.
Wow, that could be a part. But like that, I mean, it is an art of communication. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing. And so, like, the very first thing is you have to look out into the crowd. Do they understand your premise? Sometimes the answer is no. You look out and just see a look of confusion, and you have to think, well, they're not going to get the joke. If they don't understand the premise. The premise is that's writing. You have to have that, and then to get to the punchline, some kind of surprise. I feel that's from something else. So, but anyways, yeah. So I would encourage people to go out there and do some writing of some kind, whatever it is.
Dope, dope. All right. So as always, make sure you follow the FeedBak BAK everywhere on social media. There's a happy dance.
Mine would be like this. Look at that.
Yeah, follow the FeedBak everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, mostly Instagram. Go back to the archive. There's plenty. The list of people that I'm going to be talking to is getting longer and longer and longer. So make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Stitcher, Google, iTunes. It's all in there. Go to the feedback.com too. That's where everything is. YouTube as well. I'm posting full episodes on YouTube, and I'm probably gonna like. I mean, I've been saying that for a while, but like cut up clips and all that stuff and share those. It's a whole thing. But anyway, Alden, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I know I'll see you around, and I'll see that happy dance at some point.
I'll
And
work
when
on it.
look, and don't be look, and I tell you this right now, you can come to me anytime with these silly silly topics. I'll be happy to oblige and
Sure.
talk about whatever. Look. I have a lot of questions about sauerkraut, and you answered a lot of them. So anytime, man, come to me. We can talk about whatever. I'm open. I love talking about silly shit, and I'm trying to understand things, trying to understand this world better every day. So that's what I do.
Okay.
Thank you
Hey,
so much for being
yeah,
on.
appreciate the opportunity. It was a good time.
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. We'll talk to you next time. Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye.